Hey everybody, we're back. Today we're doing business and social. Today is the 19th. I immediately forgot the date.
And just like the last one, the gas pipeline figures heavily into this episode because that was the big news story. And when it comes to technology, it affected us in a variety of ways.
GasBuddy tops Apple App Store amid gas shortages from Colonial Pipeline shutdown. So we didn't really have any actual shortages around here, but we did have a lot of people acting like idiots.
I think a couple did run out.
Well,
but it was just based on...
It was panic buying, yeah.
You could probably drive 5 minutes and find it, but certain gas stations, individual gas stations, did run out.
I did see a guy driving a tractor that had to have been from like 1955 or 1960 that didn't look like it had been out of the barn in the last 20 years, filling a rusty 55-gallon drum on the back of that. And it was just like, is this even going to make it back to where you're going? Is this drum even still rated for containing petrol?
I think Kentucky, the highest the percentage ever went was 3% for like outages. So it's not very much for the whole state.
But it could have been, if that had lasted any longer, it would have been terrible because it would have been a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
The more every gas station that ran out would spawn 2 more gas stations that run out because people
right.
It's a fork bomb of gasoline.
So I don't do that, but I mean I'm not going to convince anybody not to do that by saying that. We just have to descend into the warlord mentality when these things happen. That's what you got to do.
Somebody posted a picture from Mad Max. It was like, America, so there's a gas shortage. That's basically accurate.
That one where the semi's turned over and they're fighting and they're like trying to collect it. Yeah. That was such a good idea for a movie. Well, if you are on the hunt for a new gaming laptop, I don't know if you'll be able to get these. I mean, you know how it is. It's the chip shortage, but they exist somewhere on the earth. They have these.
New 11th gen Core H45 Tiger Lake H CPUs launch to push laptop performance envelope. I don't think anybody actually has their hands on one of these yet.
In fact, Hardware did not do their own numbers here. These are Intel's numbers. They sound good.
They do sound good.
They're Intel's numbers.
I don't understand how they're able to do this many PCI Express 4 lanes in such a small power envelope. It's a lot of PCI Express 4 connectivity in a CPU.
And no one has tested that except Intel. Again, important to note because maybe they didn't do it.
It looks good on paper. We got to test it.
And actually, the apples to apples AMD parts, Intel's numbers, they seem to be better.
Yeah. Intel's is better than...
Right,
Yeah. So I just got my hands on a 4-core, the thing that launched last September. I'm working on that, but it's not ready yet.
And right now, if you are a company like Intel or AMD or NVIDIA, one of the most important things in the world to you is your relationship with the fabs. And
they're fabulous.
They're definitely looking to make some long-term contracts.
Anitech reports that AMD and GlobalFoundries have updated their wafer supply agreement. Orders now through 2024, but non-exclusive. So if you remember, AMD spun off their internal foundry as GlobalFoundries, and in a brilliant move with the chiplet thing, because AMD was required to buy from GlobalFoundries, but the world sort of marched on. GlobalFoundries is still producing 12 nanometer stuff and still making money hand over fist. They don't really feel the need to go beyond 12 nanometers at this time, but that also let AMD go to TSMC because AMD processors combine lithographies from both TSMC and GlobalFoundries. Neat.
TSMC is the prettiest girl at the prom right now.
She really is, yeah.
And her dad owns a liquor store. So afterwards, if you go with her, everybody's getting drunk.
Well, Samsung is really pretty too, but TSMC is accessible.
But Samsung's dad is a cop.
They don't have a trampoline
really
in
big
their
Samsung
yard.
wrench as well. What, Krista?
So they don't have a trampoline in their yard like TSMC does.
Well, that's a bad combination when we're that drunk, Krista. Plus, it's nighttime.
You've never jumped on a trampoline at night? It's the best time.
Yeah, actually, I have.
Yeah.
But I wasn't inebriated at the time.
It's like a summer staple. You watch the lightning bugs come out and you jump on the trampoline. Maybe that's just some sort of white trash Eastern Kentucky thing that we did, but
I don't think I'd do it on prom night. I had other priorities at that time. The Apple case, we got another little Apple block here. I know some people don't like the Apple blocks, but hey, they're in the news. And they are a big tech company.
There's so many nuggets.
And of course, it's the court case, the big epic court case, and just all these wonderful nuggets falling out of it. But this one is about the judge, and I think the judge doesn't quite understand how deep the rift between these two companies goes, because the judge was just like, well, maybe let me see if I can find some middle ground, and both sides crapped all over it.
Yeah. The Epic versus Apple judge hints at a compromise in the feud over the App Store thing. So the way that this court case, a lot of reporters and a lot of reporting around this court case thinks it's to do entirely with the commission, but that's not actually the case. It has to do with like exclusivity and access to certain things, and Apple playing favorites, and Apple bending the rules, and Apple having a different deal with Amazon than they do with other people. And so the judge was basically saying, okay, what if it's okay for Epic to have something in Fortnite that says, hey, don't pay Apple through the App Store, go to the website to do stuff? And Apple is like, we don't earn our commission.
And even Epic was saying, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't go far enough.
Yeah.
It should be more in our favor. So I don't think we're close to a reconciliation there.
It does seem like it's not going well for Apple based on the questions the judge is asking, though.
Well, think about the PR cost to Apple.
Yeah.
None of these stories are good.
Yeah.
It's not helping the brand.
I think we forgot to add the one. There was a letter they sent this past Friday. Apple sent to Congress that was basically like, save us. The judge is going to ruin everything. We're not terrible. But in fact, they are terrible.
Ron Wyden reading that and just grinning to himself.
Yeah.
I'll save you. Well,
for a price.
Yeah.
I don't know if Wyden would do that. He probably would. I mean, he's a politician. Remember, if you can harken back to when Facebook, we discovered, gave some very special API tools
to one Cambridge Analytica.
A little company called Cambridge Analytica. And then from that fallout, we discovered that they had done so for several companies.
Yeah.
None of which were companies that you would want to have your information. Now, you would think if you're a big tech company, you see that, all those terrible PR, and be like, hey, we better make sure we're not doing that. But no.
Yeah. Apple gave Zoom access to special APIs to use the iPad camera during split view multitasking. Zoom, a Hallmark platform, I think we all know what Zoom is. Yeah. So it's like Apple's argument in the Epic versus Apple cases. It's a totally level playing field. Everybody is the same. And time again, on the monetary side, we know that's not true from the deal they made with Amazon. But on the programming side, on the API, it's incredible here how much of a not level playing field it actually is. I mean, can you imagine, like in the days of IBM and DOS, it's like Lotus 123 can use the math coprocessor, but Microsoft Excel, you can't.
And if you're a competing, online meeting company, you're really getting screwed here.
Yeah. So this basically, the API let Zoom continue to use the camera even when it was not an active application.
Which might have security implications.
Oh, but we trust Zoom.
They're so trust. Zoom, didn't they lie about encryption?
And didn't they send data to China?
Well, Apple's comfortable with that. And maybe their comfort with China is another thorn in their side, because these headlines, it's nothing new. I mean, we've seen it before, but it's really bad. I mean, it's slavery.
Yeah.
And that's a negative thing in today's society for sure.
Apple suppliers linked to Uyghur forced labor in new report. Other U.S. tech companies linked as well. So Apple commented on this, and they said, well, we did our own investigation, and we didn't find the link. But Apple did cut off one supplier that was previously uncovered by journalists that they had previously said didn't have a link, and then when we presented with evidence, they cut off that supplier. So the evidence, the hard evidence, it wasn't put forth in this article. This is kind of a developing story. It'll be interesting to see where it goes, if this is just another anti-Apple piece or if this is kind of like a distraction. I don't know. I really don't know which situation it is. It's hard to tell. Because it could be other tech companies are like going hardcore on the forced labor stuff, and they're trying to use Apple as a distraction. Or Apple, could kind of know and just kind of sweeping it under the rug. Probably both.
Here's a question, and I'm thinking back. Pretty sure I've never seen it phrased any other way. But how much of a like Chomsky manipulation of language is forced labor?
Oh yeah,
Because forced labor is
Yeah.
so much nicer than slavery.
yeah.
But what's the
Literal
difference?
slaves.
Well, I can see that. No, there really isn't a difference because even in the American system, it's not really forced labor. You just get there's it's incentivized, strongly incentivized.
No, these guys are getting abducted and moved to another location.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
It's definitely slavery.
Yeah. So who decided? At some point, do you think the Apple PR team was pressuring? Is that how that happened? Or are the news agencies just toothless?
Probably the news agencies are.
Maybe they're
toothless.
afraid that they'll be removed from the algorithm in like search results if they have the word slavery in the title.
Jacob Casternakes. He's got his Twitter here, chat. Maybe you should direct message him and ask him why he chose that.
Is this better or worse
It's
than
usually
Blood
the editor
Diamonds?
who does that.
You need this more than diamonds. Some people, you don't need diamonds to do a job, right? Or
Right.
get an education.
Mostly.
But you could argue you might need this.
There's a bunch of people telling us that you need diamonds to cut certain things.
I'm sure there's alternatives. But I
The
don't
last
also,
episode. Oh, sorry. Continue.
What is it?
are those the diamonds that we're killing children over?
Yeah.
Can't you get the flawed diamonds and use those, like the crappy diamonds, and use those for the industrial applications?
It's actually way cheaper now to make the
Yeah,
industrial
synthetic.
Right,
diamonds.
which we talked about last week. But diamond engagement. Does your career require diamonds? I still think that the laptops are going to outweigh that quite a bit.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Krista?
Well, last episode we were talking about like the Fairphone. It's supposed to be a lot better for this kind of thing, but it's not offered in the U.S. yet. So
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure most companies are better than Apple in this regard. They've got
Yeah.
quite a history here.
well, I know that like the Fairphone looks for like fair trade gold and like minerals and stuff, but again, none are perfect. Apple's probably especially not perfect, but
Especially not perfect, but even a villain like this once in a while might do something that helps the little people. Now, they probably didn't do it necessarily to help you. This was, to help themselves or to help their PR, maybe both. But it probably is a good thing for us, and it has been overwhelmingly effective. Zuckerberg, how much sleep did he get last night?
None. He was like that where you doze off. The micro sleeps. He's so sleep deprived that he's just like freaking out. His eyes are sunk in. He's like, I don't know what's
he had
going
to just
on.
do a manual shutdown.
Yeah, he didn't even go to a low power state. He stayed at max power the entire. He actually had to plug in while he was working all night long.
An early look. Oh, okay. Analytics suggests that 96% of users leave app tracking disabled in iOS 14.5. So this is the adpocalypse for ad providers.
It's the other way around.
Yeah. We as creators have already experienced several adpocalypses. This is for Zuckerberg. But really, this is a war on competitors, I think. What?
The 96% was actually just the U.S.
Yeah.
Internationally, which is weird, 12% accepted it. So internationally, people are a lot more willing to say yes to these tracking prompts.
Yeah, but it's
Really?
still like the vast majority of users turn it off.
It's still apocalyptic for Facebook.
Yeah. Now, it's really interesting. I forgot, this is another story that I forgot to include, but Apple hired the executive from Facebook who is famous for saying some very inflammatory things about the end of privacy to help run their ad division. And they're hiring a lot of people for the ad stuff. I don't think that's a coincidence here.
Well, remember we had that story about them adding more ads to their own stuff.
And the person that they hired doesn't, the previous public statements when they were part of Facebook seems to think that they don't believe in individual privacy.
Sounds like some citizen activists should test that theory. See how willing they are to have their information.
We'll cover that next week when the journalists catch up to that and start writing stories about that.
Well, Google pales in comparison, at least this week, in terms of the nasty things that they've done, but it doesn't mean they've stopped doing nasty things, and it doesn't mean they've stopped negotiating the hard way when it comes to
I've
other tech
altered the
companies.
deal. Pray I do not alter it any further. Google goes nuclear against Roku by adding YouTube TV to the main YouTube app. It's also securing free streaming devices for customers in case talks with Roku completely fall apart. So this article and the happening since last week, I guess, when we talked about this, made it a lot easier for me to understand what's happening.
Last week we talked about they were threatening this.
Yeah.
But they've done it.
So the way that Roku sees the people that have bought a Roku device is as a source of revenue. They don't want you to use a Roku device to connect to other services exclusively. They want to make money on you from now until the end of time.
Well, they also join all the services together. That's the benefit of the Roku. It's like you can have everybody can be involved in our thing. Google doesn't like that.
But they want to also collect money, it seems, because Google is taking the thing and adding the app directly, whereas Roku is saying, no, they're controlling our platform. Because some of the commentary from the Roku people say, no, this is monopoly abuse by Google because they're bypassing our control to like deal directly with our customers or whatever, which is different, I think.
Well, it's the difference. So Roku wants to offer YouTube TV, which is the paid version of YouTube, separately from the YouTube app because the paid version they want a piece of.
Yeah.
And YouTube is saying, we'll just get the regular YouTube app. We'll put this in it. You don't have to worry about it, Roku.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit like the Apple thing.
Neither one of them have the user's best interest in mind.
Absolutely true. Although with the prevalence of smart TVs, I don't understand how Roku is still...
The smart TV apps are all garbage and poorly implemented and badly engineered.
The last time I used a Roku, which admittedly was like second generation, it was also garbage.
Yeah.
Those interfaces, like a laggy interface. Spend another 20 cents on that chip and give me an interface that doesn't lag. Jesus.
We have a Roku, and I've never experienced that. I prefer it to trying to use anything on a smart TV.
How long have you had it?
Like 2 years now.
Okay, so it's a new one.
They definitely prefer you using that as well so that they can make money on what you're watching.
Yeah.
And tracking it. Selling that data. They get that data and they're like, she's watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy again? This can't be right.
It's always House. It's like, why are you watching House for the 100th time?
Chrissy, you could be watching Shadow and Bone. How many times do I have to tell you this? Jeez.
You keep saying that, but I was reading the comments last week and people were like, that's like a teeny bopper show. And I was like, that's surprising that Ryan likes that if that's the case.
I think it's young adult fiction it's based on. I'm not positive about that, but I think it is. But that's why I'm recommending it to you, Krista. I'm not saying that it's my favorite thing. I'm saying that as someone who's afraid of Game of Thrones because there are nipples in it, this will take care of you.
I just found the nipples distracting when I wanted to learn more about how the people interacted, and then there's just people screwing in the background.
We all found the nipples distracting.
For different
But I don't
reasons.
find it titillating. Ha ha ha. Titillating.
Well, what is both distracting and, well, no, it's not titillating at all, is it? It's disgusting, is what Vizio is doing when you buy something from them.
Vizio makes nearly as much money from ads and data as it does from its TVs. So, yeah, doing the analysis to figure out what you're watching. Remember the stories we did where when you plug in a USB stick, it was like, let me phone home to the mothership with the file names that are on the USB stick. It's like, what? And then it was like, we'll stop doing that. No, the money's too good. They literally can't stop doing that.
So if you see this data here, notice that they're like, oh, time spent on game consoles. Well, how would they know that? Yeah, they're tracking everything that you do. They're selling it. They do still make more money from the hardware, but if the trends continue in a couple of years, they will be mostly a data sales company and not a TV company.
Wow.
Pretty sure the EU's charging up their pocketbooks right now. It's like, oh.
The EU would like to know your location.
The EU's going to have a budget surplus in like 2026. They're not going to know what to do with all that money. Microsoft is a big tech company that really, and maybe this is for the best in some cases, we don't hear a lot from anymore. They don't make a lot of big announcements. They don't get involved in all this privacy nonsense. There is the whole Jedi thing.
Yeah.
They were mixed up in that. But for the most part, no. However, they don't seem to be doing a lot in their downtime.
No.
They seem to be failing again.
Microsoft has shelved Windows 10X. It's not shipping in 2021. So this was Windows 10 for dual screen devices. Remember, was it Lenovo? Lenovo had that dual screen device. I think it was like e-ink on one side and an LCD on the other. And they demoed some devices that were LCD screens on both sides. As far back as Computex in like 2018, they were demoing dual screen devices. And they can't figure it out. I mean, it makes sense because the last Windows 10 update, search is broken in strange and crazy ways. The start menu will let you, it's like, type what you want to find at the bottom. So you do that, and then you hit enter, nothing happens. It's broken in a lot of really interesting and clever ways.
Clever?
Like, how did they, how did
break
this
so
even...
badly?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm not even mad. This is just an incredible level of messed up.
I'm mad.
So...
Well, we've talked a lot about Amazon and their weird relationship with the Chinese sellers and the counterfeiters. And we've often questioned, do they even care? Because they are making a lot of money here, but does this ultimately damage their reputation? I think the answer is yes. And perhaps, finally, someone within Amazon is realizing that.
Prime today, gone tomorrow. Chinese products get pulled from Amazon. So they've expended everything. I think this is a pretty easy fix for Amazon, though. They can just require that their sellers that are moving this much volume to carry a proportionate insurance policy. So if you're selling $1 gazillion worth of hoverboards, an insurance adjuster could look at that and be like, you need to carry a bond with Amazon. And it's like, oh, we've detected a counterfeit product. You should do this. However, Amazon is not great at telling what products are counterfeit and which ones are not.
But also, it's not just counterfeit they're dealing with there. I think at least, actually, a couple of those cases, several companies just disappeared. Yeah. And it sent shockwaves through the Chinese world of, like these companies that sell through Amazon, because they're like, oh, we knew we weren't supposed to be doing that, but we didn't think they would respond. And it seems like overwhelmingly a couple of those were fake reviews.
Yeah.
And they had some pretty hard evidence, or at least the speculation is they had some hard evidence that these reviews were kind of blatantly being fed. Like they weren't even being that clever about it. So Amazon just pulled the plug.
Yeah.
And this is more about what you're talking about, which is the old counterfeit products. What do you do about them? Well, there's really only one solution.
Amazon seized and destroyed 2 million counterfeit products in 2020. Counterfeit products into Amazon warehouses are destroyed to prevent resale. Although, remember the story about the guy that had all the brick and mortar stores that closed because of the global situation, and he sent his stuff to Amazon and they just arbitrarily decided that it was fake, but it wasn't fake. It was just old inventory that he had from his brick and mortar stores.
And also the where they're always like, these are counterfeit Apple parts, and it's just a competitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of that in this, very likely. So don't be too quick to celebrate that, because we know at least a couple of people that got screwed by that hardcore that weren't terrible people.
Yeah, but overall,
yeah,
fewer people are going to be affected if you crack down.
I wonder how many of those 2 million items were DisplayPort cables, because good Lord, there's a lot of fake DisplayPort cables on Amazon.
At least 1 million.
ACGU? Don't. Triplite cables? No.
They do have some interesting, like these Chinese companies on Amazon have some interesting names.
I think the Triplite ones are actually fakes, because they're not. They're really bad.
Well, Amazon, from time we kind of shift what we focus on in terms of the bad part of Amazon. Is it the terrible counterfeit and fake reviews thing? We could talk about that today, but tomorrow maybe we'll talk about the fact that they're destroying the world, and creating all this waste. But this one is about another issue that they have, which is how they treat their employees.
Insider reports, and I really want to get some insider information on this if I can. Amazon managers and performance reviews, they hire people to then turn around and fire them in order to preserve their existing team.
So the Amazon corporate structure requires that you fire the worst 10% of your workforce every year.
Okay.
And so these managers are saying, I like my team. I've trained them. We work together. We like each other. We share pee bottles. We're a team. I don't want to fire them. So what I do is I hire 10% and then I fire them at the end of the year. And they're only there to be, the cannon fodder. to appreciate. And this goes all the way up. Even like the top corporate execs, the bottom 10% have to go every year.
That seems like the Department of Labor would have something to say about that.
It is a crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you think that's illegal?
Yeah, the Department of Labor absolutely would say that's illegal.
I don't know. They talk about it like it's the greatest management strategy in the universe.
It's like if you don't stay above the 10%, you become the cannon fodder.
But some of the managers that spoke out against it said, yeah, that works in year 1 and 2, but by year 3 or 4, you may have built a really good team. And now you're just destroying your team.
Yeah.
Taking on the unknown. Well, the people are still struggling to get the consoles, I think, right?
Yeah.
Especially the PlayStation. And maybe that's why they're waiting till the end of the year to talk about this, for more people to have it. I don't know.
Valve's Gabe Newell teases console-related plans for Steam games. More to learn by the end of the year. So somebody asked him a question offhand in an interview about, where do you see this doing stuff? The answer could simply be that Valve is going to make some of its games available for consoles. That could be the entire answer. That could be the thing. I think the article speculates that, like, Alex, Half-Life Alex, which is really popular for VR, he might have meant that that's coming to PlayStation VR. Maybe.
What percentage of the sale will he take?
30%. I think Sony would just be happy with your 8% and move on.
I don't know. He's a strong player in the field. He can negotiate. And if you are super excited about that and you're like, oh my God, I've always wanted to play Half-Life Alyx on a PlayStation, please let me. Well, put your order in now.
Sony warns that shortages are going to lead to tight PS5 supply for the foreseeable future, basically.
Yikes. What are they going for on eBay right now? Have you checked?
Over 1,000.
Wow. That's disgusting.
3090s are going for 2,000 to 3,000.
Hope my 1080 holds out for another couple of years.
1080s are going for 1,000.
Yeah, but I can't give it up. What am I going to do? Well, I think one of my favorite things about the pandemic is now that you see new release movies immediately. That's great. I love that. And it is definitely something that the movie companies don't like, and they are trying to find a way around it.
Disney patents blockchain-based movie distribution system to stop pirates. That seems like the opposite use case for a blockchain, but okay.
Yeah, so they're saying that not necessarily that you would have to use the blockchain to buy the movie eventually, although they could easily go there. But this is for like the early versions of it that go out to track, because somebody is leaking it, right? And that will watermark them and stuff now, but this takes it to the next step.
Scary.
What a magical kingdom they have.
Leave it to Disney to figure out a way to turn blockchain, which is ostensibly a public ledger, into something that is, a little darker.
Now, this headline, I would like to revise it a little bit. I would like to add to the end, not really, because they didn't. They did not do this. They do not have this. They don't really even have a plan for how to do this, and Jalopnik should be ashamed.
Researchers have developed a way to wirelessly charge vehicles on the road. What happened was a researcher maybe got a little stoned and played F-Zero for the Super Nintendo, and when a little car came over and it was like to heal your car or whatever from the side, he's like, I can do that with electric cars, and that's the extent of it.
So the idea behind this is that you have alternating magnetic fields on the road, and as you go through them at speed, you have plates on the bottom of your car which slide back and forth, which creates an alternator-like effect and charges your car. The problem is the material required for that doesn't exist. Current materials probably wouldn't work.
Yeah. It would work fine if you stopped your car on a parking spot that was designed for that, and a little thing came up and got close to your car and did that.
What if you just had like a cable and you plugged it in?
That would probably work too.
We talked about this last week, and it was all about, it's like, oh, are they going to do it? I think it was pretty obvious they were, and they wasted no time.
eBay has embraced NFTs. eBay's joining the NFT frenzy. This is just a great way for laundering money. We don't have to buy $2,000, old Charles Dickens paperback books that aren't worth anything anymore. You can just launder money this way. I mean, what a boon to criminals. This is great.
Bad news for Wayfair and those $10,000 shelves that they were selling that were named after children.
Wow, that's a dark callback.
How about that?
People forget those things. I think they came up with some kind of explanation, but I remember reading it and thinking, I don't know if that makes any sense. Krista, have you looked into getting your dirt bike yet?
No, I have not, because my neighbors have enough to make enough noise for the whole neighborhood.
Oh, maybe they'll let you ride one of their dirt bikes.
Maybe.
But if not, and you want a bike that goes suicidally fast, there's an exciting new option coming.
Harley-Davidson launches all-electric motorcycle brand LiveWire. That reminds me of LimeWire, which is, how you got viruses on your computer back in the 2000s, but...
I mean, the torque of an electric motor on a motorcycle, that's going to be crazy. That is going to launch a lot of people to their deaths.
I was going to say, what happens when you crash one of these and then, the battery burns up?
You lose a leg. That's what happens.
My mind went in a dark tangent with not that, but it was thinking about like a self-driving motorcycle, and then it was thinking about self-driving cars. Then it was thinking about how much compute horsepower is in a car that has the self-driving capabilities. And then I was like, what if the car is mining a cryptocurrency while you're not driving it with all of its compute resources? It would help pay for itself.
But BMW does have a self-driving motorcycle now. Like, it's not a consumer version, but they figured that out, which is incredible.
Crazy.
Would you ever have the confidence in AI to ride a self-driving motorcycle?
Nope.
Wow.
No.
It's balls of steel right there. Or just stupidity. Well, pour one out for a fallen hero. A lot of people would argue that it was actually just a horrible place. I am really curious about certain things when I hear about them, and I want to see them. And this was a great place to do that. But I will admit, maybe 40-50% of the time, I was like, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it's a mistake. It's always a mistake.
My curiosity is satisfied, but now there's a new sadness.
LiveLeak, the internet's font of gore and violence, has shut down. The Verge reports that after 15 years in operation, LiveLeaks is no more. I guess the guy gave a shout out to Rotten.com and some others, and he said, the internet now is a different place than it was. I'm just tired of dealing with it.
Certainly true. Is this one of the major high watermarks of post-adpocalypse internet?
Probably, yeah.
Because it really, that started the change that would have killed LiveLeak.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Sad. Now you got to watch all that stuff on Facebook. Now, SpaceX was supposed to be the common man's thing, right? It brings internet back to the poor, downtrodden, rural people. I don't know if this is a step in that direction.
SpaceX has partnered with Google Cloud on Starlink, placing ground stations at data centers. Listen, you got to put those poor people as close to the Google data center as possible because they're only using Google services anyway. I mean, come on.
Of course, yeah. Someone who is previously on dial-up is definitely using the Google Cloud in their daily life. But what about that whole, there's only so much bandwidth for this thing? They've already talked about that. He's talked about keeping it small to keep it fast. This doesn't seem like it would do that.
More ground stations for more routes, for more things that are local?
I don't know. The cryptocurrency took a big drop this week. We had of course, Mr. Musk keeps opening his mouth and tweeting and
just about crashed Doge all by himself.
Went on Saturday Night Live, and he's just been whipsawing the prices back and forth. But there is another issue that is dragging it down.
Barron's.com reports that Binance is under federal investigation. Bitcoin, Coinbase, and the crypto world are reeling, and that's why. We thought Binance was following the rules. Did they change the rules again?
You ever check out Binance? Man, they get some crazy financial products that they'll sell you on there. It's like, binary options on Bitcoin, and it's just crazy stuff. And I got to admit, I'm like, oh, I should get in on this. And they're like, all right.
I don't know if I saw one of the traditional, it wasn't Fidelity. It was one of the traditional finance things, and they were selling cryptocurrency stuff, but it was actually that they're just taking your money. Like, this is a thing that you buy from them that is like some sort of commoditized fractional Bitcoin thing. And it's like, well, they have fractional Bitcoin, but you weren't actually buying Bitcoin from them because there was no way to actually like have it delivered to a wallet address. They were just holding it for you.
Welcome to the precious metals market.
Yeah.
And that's how they control the price. So if you're in crypto, you should fear these people getting involved because they will do the same thing.
The more that stuff like that happens, the more it makes me think that the entire finance market is just like nobody actually knows what they're doing because there's so many steps involved. It's like, no, we just do whatever we want. We don't have to follow any rules. And it's like,
well, I think you get to a point where, it's like the whole, you don't know how much you don't know right now. And when you get to the point where you understand it more, you're like, oh, it's all fake.
yeah, that's where I'm at. And it's
Money
just
as
like,
a concept is just fake.
It doesn't really matter.
None of this is real.
It doesn't matter what we do as long as we follow these rules because it's all fake.
Yeah.
And yet, can't live without it. Well, China, they have a bit of a bad reputation. I don't know if you guys have heard, but they've done some things that a lot of people consider to be not okay. So what do? Do you clean up your act? No, that's too hard. Let's just cheat.
An army of fake fans boosts China's messaging on Twitter. The Associated Press reports, well, Twitter figured this out, and they published some information that maybe will help some other organizations. But, yeah.
Yeah, so they have really popular social media people in the Chinese Communist Party, and they constantly scour the web for criticism of China. And they cleverly make little quips about it. And they posted a couple of them, and it was like, oh, that was clever. That's not on Wendy's level, but pretty good. And Twitter looked, and they were like, oh, this got 100,000 likes and retweets. But when you look under the hood a little bit, almost all of those accounts had been flagged for, fake clicking. But it works. Perception is reality, at least for some people. And we know that social media is a wasteland, and we know that people use it improperly, and that it's basically just an addiction. And they don't really think that much about what they're using it for. They just need to engage. So how do you make them be more aware?
Facebook is testing a pop-up message to tell people to read a link before they send it. Now, don't just blindly retweet this. This guy that's in Nancy Pelosi's office, definitely you probably should read this before you retweet it.
Do you think they say that about when you're, holding cash in a gun? I don't know. But they did say that they've been testing this in several markets, and people actually paid attention to it.
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you even? I mean, I can't remember a time that I've shared something I didn't read. Because you can get burned pretty bad for that.
I can remember reading something that was very obvious that the person didn't even read.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And speaking of we've moved on to social media in case that wasn't obvious, but moving on to Facebook, we're still getting fallout from the big Trump decision. Now, if you remember, the board said, keep him banned for now, but you have to deal with this later. You can't just say, well, in this situation, we're going to do that. No, you have to make hard rules that apply to everybody.
Yeah. NPR, the headline from NPR is, in the first big test, the Oversight board says that Facebook, not Trump, is the problem. And the headline is a little misleading. It just says that the problem with Facebook is that they are arbitrary with the rules. Like, when they banned Trump, what they banned him for was not, and the duration and all the other kind of stuff, wasn't really in their rules. So they changed. It was like, oh, this is a problem. We're going to have a knee-jerk reaction, and then we'll justify it later. And so the board is saying, look, just put policies in place and we'll help you consistently enforce them, but you're going to have to come up with the policies that make sense and can be fairly enforced, which I don't disagree with.
But if you did that, you'd have to lifetime ban Pelosi as well, because she made that statement about
You're being lifetime banning a lot of politicians because a lot of them have said very nasty things.
But she said something
make
about
the internet better, really.
She said something about get more involved, like get out there and get on the streets. And then somebody drove by and shot cops. And it's like, well, it's exactly the same thing. You know, it's just as bad. You called for something to happen, and then it happened. You might have called directly for it, but neither did Trump. So I don't think they would ever apply that rule fairly.
Universally and fairly.
Yeah.
Well, the board is going to try if Facebook can write some consistent rules, which is what that whole article is about. It's like basically the board is calling on Facebook to come up with consistent rules, and then once they have a set of consistent rules, then they'll reevaluate as to whether or not Trump will be welcomed back under those rules. But right now, there are no rules for doing that.
Let's say that at some point, Trump is going to be irrelevant just from age. But how long will that take?
Engagement challenge?
Oh,
That's maybe not a good engagement
You're really
challenge.
inviting it there, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, so aren't the Republicans saying like, oh, we can't move forward without him? Which that seems like a risky strat, but
Bold move, Cotton. Let's see if that works out for
considering his
him.
age.
Well,
but
they can't split their base.
I guess that's probably what they're concerned about. But
So, I don't know. Let's just go with Caitlyn Jenner, right? She should be the new face of the GOP.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, WhatsApp, as we mentioned before, they've gone into this new privacy policy thing, and you have to agree. And you don't necessarily get completely locked out yet, but they're going to trickle away. Like when Firefox needs to update,
Yeah.
and it just starts removing features till it annoys you enough to update. That's the thing that they're going for. And you might think, well, that's going to destroy them, right? But as TechCrunch points out, people don't seem to care all that much.
WhatsApp is growing despite the backlash, relaxes its May 15th policy update deadline. So it's turned into a little bit of a boiling frog thing. Like WhatsApp really wants to marry itself to Facebook, but it needs your approval to do so. But it's all just theater. They're going to do what they want anyway, and it's a little bit of a boiling frog situation. So the application is going to become less and less functional over time until you are worn down and finally agree to that.
I was excited for this to happen until we learned all of those horrible things about this app. And now I'm thinking, maybe I don't need this in my life. But it is popular, or should I say it was popular. And the popularity has been waning a lot lately. And maybe this will rekindle it, but I'm not sure.
Clubhouse finally launches its Android app. That's it. That's the story.
that's,
Not anything else.
Well, the rest of the story
a few
is
paragraphs.
their iOS app is not doing well. A lot of people are abandoning it.
Yeah, the novelty has worn off. We can talk to people through an app on our phone that was originally designed for voice communication. Oops.
Amazing.
Time to be alive.
Breaking new ground every day. All right, well, that's all we got.
What do we got
That's it.
Friday? We got a lot of nonsense this week.
It's robot nonsense.
A lot of gas station, gas can misuse.
Mostly gas related.
A lot of fires. Has anybody died? I don't know if anybody's died.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't think so. I haven't seen any death stories. I've seen a lot of reports of weird smells in hotel, and then if they just find out someone was
There's a corpse in a shed right now that died from gas fumes. We're going to find him in a couple of weeks.
ooh.
Then the bomb squad is going to have to come in.
Most people don't realize gas fumes at a certain concentration actually flammable.
Oh, super flammable.
Yeah.
Isn't it true, gas engagement challenge, that when open containers of gasoline light, it's never the liquid that's lighting.
Yeah.
It's the gas that's lighting.
Yeah.
The gaseous. Well, when I say gas, I mean the gas form that's floating over top of it. And don't try this at home, but if you're blowing the gas off the top of like a 55-gallon drum of gasoline, you can put a cigarette out in it. Don't try that.
Yeah, I'd say
You
don't.
can do that.
Do not. You didn't hear that here.
Ryan, our liability insurance doesn't cover this.
That would definitely run afoul of those European laws.
Yeah.
Lawful, but not desirable. Krista, give us a bad gasoline advice. Goodbye.
Bye.
The best way that you could have done that was just to roll around on the ground and scream. But we wouldn't have been able to see
They wouldn't have been
it.
able to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been out of frame.
See you
Bye.
tomorrow. Or no, Friday.